we may say that different frictional contact with the road surface, which allows the driving wheels to move the vehicle. Then we have front tires, which allows the vehicle to steer. So during steering mechanism, or what we can say that when the vehicle is turned in either direction, either left or right, so that time front vehicle specifically has to overcome number of cornering effects of the road, and that we call as a cornering power for the purpose of smoother steering. We may have this condition, that is smooth steering should be there. So basically we may say that these are some of the basic functions of a tire. Now we are not talking about the wheels, please remember. So tires allow braking to slow or stop the vehicle. If you don't have tire, then there will be very less friction, or either what we can say that loads and all these factors will not be overcome. So hope that you have understood related to the basic functions of an automobile vehicle, tires, and what parameters it has to undergo. Then next is nothing but what basic properties, or we may call this as, I may change that, what desirable properties an automobile vehicle requires. So instead of properties, I will write it as desirable property. So small change if I will make it. So expectations are, what are the expectations from a tire? So first case we can say that it should be non-skidding. So always this will be the tire has to play a vital role when the vehicle is moving in its motion or when it is in speed. That is, what type of tread pattern is there on the tire which suitably designed for some specific road conditions. That is, we may say it should permit at least amount of skidding even on wet surface. So we cannot say that always skidding will be 0%, but at least if though the road is condition are wet, suppose, then it has to overcome and it has to provide the non-skidding property. So this is one desirable property of a tire. Second, we may say that uniform wear. So this condition, that is, it has to maintain the non-skidding property as we discussed. So it is very essential that the wear of the tire, that is, though we talk about the tire, there are some tread patterns which are provided on the tires throughout its periphery. So when I'm talking about the wear related to tire, it's nothing but the wear of a tread pattern which must be uniform throughout. Now we'll discuss this again in detail. Uniform in the sense there are some sort of tread patterns on the tire. Sometimes tire may get wear over here, sometimes at the center, or sometimes at the edges. So there are specific conditions. We'll see that why the tire gets weird at center, or either at the edges, or either at the corner. So there are some basic reasons, but property for a tire, that is, it should wear, though if it is wearing, it should wear uniformly throughout. Then next is load carrying capacity. So load carrying capacity, so number of loads, forces are to be overcome. That is, the tire is subjected to number of alternating stresses, we can say. The constant stress is not there for a tire. We may say call it as an alternating stresses. When it will come, when the tire is continuously rotating, maybe clockwise, anti-clockwise. So number of revolutions, the alternating stresses are acting, and the tire material should be designed such that it should ensure that the tire is able to sustain the stresses. So that is, the load carrying capacity should be perfect. Then next is the speed capacity. So speed capacity is nothing but based on type of tire or rating of a tire, the speed ratings are specified. So based on that speed rating, vehicle should not be moved or used beyond the speed limits. Then we have cushioning. Cushioning is nothing but it has to absorb the small frequency of small vibrations which are set up by the road surfaces, as we discussed in earlier case as well. So small vibrations may be there, so that are to be absorbed by the tire itself. It should not be transferred to the chassis. So the function of tire is again cushioning, as we discussed in earlier slide. Then we have a power consumption. Now, as it has to absorb different powers in case of uniform wear, skidding and speed carrying capacity and load carrying capacity. So power consumption is one factor. That is as per the different materials. If we use natural rubber, if we use synthetic rubber, so based on that we may get different losses on account of wear of a tire. So power consumption factor is important again. The next thing is the noise. Now, I think you may have heard some basic noise of a tire, that is a zip sound during the vehicle is rotating or moving. So that is nothing but a definite pattern, or we can say a sequel is created by the tire. That is a loud noise. So that is related with the type of road conditions also. So whenever it's perfectly flat a road, that time also we are getting some basic noise continuously. So that noise should be as minimum as possible, though it may be what condition of a road. So noise condition is the property of a tire should be it should not create a maximum noise. Then we have balancing. Now balancing is again one factor to avoid the wear tear of a vehicle tire. That is, if we don't provide balancing to the vehicle tire, then we may get some sort of tire bumps, though the road surface is perfectly flat, very good condition. But then also, if we don't have a perfect or good balancing, then we may get certain wheel wobbling, we can say. So vehicle wheel may create some sort of dynamic forces, and which will lead in turn to for the wear of the tires. So what we can say, these are the basic conditions or the expected properties of an automobile tire. So hope that you have understood this. The next case is the terminology related to vehicle tires. Now basic terminologies in detail instead we will have some basic points because same images will be shown in our next slide. So steel wheels are there, which are most popularly designed, very strong and cheaper. Then we have alloy wheels, spoked wheels, divided rim wheels, as we discussed in our last lecture. With that, the tire also consists of the plies, beads, plies, cross plies, we have radial plies, we have different thread patterns, we have side walls. So these are all factors related with the tires, and based on the inflation, that is how much pressurized air is to be kept inside a tire, that also matters. So plies are nothing but the layers of strong fabric which are built up to give the tire its strength and shape. Then we have beads are nothing but the wiring, we can say, or the loops of steel cords which are anchor point along a or at a center. So number of wire cords are provided. Then we have cross plies. So plies are provided. Why? Because the main plies of a tire run at an angle of 45 degree from bead to each other. Now how the plies are provided, either in one direction 45 degree to another, again we have another plies likewise. So if you say, it's nothing but the lining which is provided over the tire through wiring. Then we have radial ply. Radial ply is nothing but same condition, only it will be provided in a straight direction one over the other. Then we have a trade pattern. Now what should be the trade pattern? It will again depend on what type of road surface the vehicle is moving and for what purpose it is assisting. That is whether it has to undergo some terrain conditions or either the flat tar road vehicles likewise. Then we have a sidewall. Sidewall in the sense it connects the bead to the tire of a vehicle. Suppose this is the tire, we have a tread pattern at the bottom surface, then beads are provided at the end section. So connecting the tread and beads is nothing but the sidewalls. Those sidewalls does not has to undergo physical contact with the road surface, but then also it has to wear the tire pressure as well as some sort of extra ordinary conditions. Whenever there is sudden physical contact, there may be some of the different reasons. So these are the basic terminologies which will be used in the tire. Now based on this, the different parts, now we may say that, so beads, first factor, that is you can observe it over here, this part all along over here. We can again observe few text diagrams. So these are nothing but the number of wire cords, metal cords, that is the two rings that are made up of a steel wire and encased in a rubber, and it most probably holds the tire side walls. So these are the side walls of a tire. So this holding purpose we use the beads and then against the rim and prevent the tire coming off. So these side walls are supported with that. Suppose we have a wheel over here. So whenever we may undergo some sort of bumps or shocks, that time this tire should not come out of the wheel. So that is again the basic reason why we provide the beads with number of steel wires or cords. Then we have body plies. Body plies in the sense we may say that these are the basic plies, maybe in one direction, maybe in cross direction, maybe a bias type, maybe a radial type. It will depend. So body plies are nothing but the rubberized fabric and cords are wrapped around the beads. Now around this we have a wrapping of this plies to form carcass or what we can say the body of a tire. Then we have a tread pattern. Tread pattern is nothing but this which is visible to you. Now type of tread pattern also provides us the where the vehicle is to be used and on what type of road surface it is to be used. So these are nothing but the tread patterns, outer surface of a tire that comes out with the road surface. So this is the basic number of parts we can say for a tire. With that we have a side walls. First one, that is this factor we can say these are nothing but the visible side walls on which some sort of information is written. We'll again deal with that information in detail, but that part we call it as a side wall or a tire liner. So outer part of a tire that extends from the bead, that is this point, to the trade marking, that is this trade marking. So contact of both, as I told you, is nothing but the sidewall. So marking on sidewall provide the information about the tire, some sort of information you may have observed on different tires. Some sort of information is written over there. Then we have liners, then thin layer of rubber that is bonded inside the plies between this and provides a leak proof membrane for a tubeless tires as well. So for tubeless tire again we have different extra lining provided which will retain the air pressure within the tire. Then we have different types of belts used, belts in the sense the layers of different cords, so used as a strength for a body plies and stiffen the tread. So this tread pattern is such that it will not be converted or moved, or what we can say, it will lies between the trade and the plies. So between this we have this plates. So Then we have what type of material we are, so no need to go in detail with all types of compounds, that is, yeah, what and how this rubber is manufactured. I think this parameter you may have studied in your 12 standards as well, so no need to go in detail with the type of materials used. Now if you observe the cutaway section for tire, so I will just mark out or read out the names what exactly are to be understood, though we have read out some parts. So starting from the top bottom position for a tire and top position in our diagram, that is the rubberized section, that is this one visible section for a tire is nothing but the trade pattern. And everyone whenever purchase or changes a tire for an automobile, bicycle or vehicle, then that time he or she may observe that what type of trade pattern. Some of you are much familiar with this trade pattern. Then we have beyond that base. Then we have the belt section. So first, second, third, likewise. So after that, we have linings, that is ply ratings. First, second, third rating, that is 1, 2, 3, based on type of condition, that is bias type, radial type, or what we can say. Then we have sidewalls. Then we have a number of linings. If we use a tube tire, then directly a tube will be there. And if it's a tubeless tire, we have a air tight linings in between. And then we will use some sort of veneer and white coatings in within, and some suspension parameter or material, that is nothing but the rim cushioning we can say, to avoid the wear out with physical contact with the rim or a wheel. Then lastly, we may call it as a bead. So beading is nothing but the steel cords, as we have discussed earlier. So this is nothing but what we required related to the tire. Then next is nothing but the different types of plies what I was talking about. So you can see that in the given diagram, we call this type of ply rating, that is whenever the plies are mounted in this fashion, maybe at 45-degree, one over the other, first ply, second ply, third ply, we say, I think you may be familiar, though you're not familiar with the vehicle bicycle tire, uh, car tire, but you can say that a small bicycle where you were using in earlier days. So they were using how many plies are there. So based on that, we were getting the strength. So similar condition, this bias plies. So it looks like this. So just fastly, I will read out few points related to the bias plies. So it's nothing but one of the oldest design. It consists of several textile plies which laid across each other and running from B to the build alternate direction, as I said you. The number of plies depend on the size of a tire and the load it has to carry. So how many plies we are going to provide, either 1, 2, 3, 4, likewise in continuation, it will depend on the rating which is provided on the side wall of a tire for how much load capacity it is to be used. Then we can say number of plies used for a crown or a sidewall. Then we apply an angle, that is this angle. Then we do not use the belt in the bias plies. Whereas if you go for weaknesses, it reduces, important thing, the traction at higher speeds and increase the rolling resistance. This is the main drawback for a bias type of a vehicle or tire. Then next is belted type. In earlier case, we were not having the belts, but over here we are having the belts. Belts are nothing but the crisscrossed number of plies. You can have a good example over here. That is, whenever you are using the belted type of plies, the perfect contact with the road surface of a treads, we don't have it. So that's why bias ply tires with belts added to increase the tread stiffness. Then we have belts which do not run around the sidewalls. Then belts, plies run at a different angles. Again, it offers some reduction in the rolling resistance over a buyer plies. So compared to earlier case, its rolling resistance is reduced and it provides us the smooth and good traction. So in earlier case it was some of the olden type, but this case when you go with, there is nothing but providing the good condition. Now nowadays what we are using is nothing but the radial plies. So these are nothing but, it will look like this, that is number of layers in a radial fashion itself will be provided. It will have a good strength along this trade pattern itself. Same thing will be mentioned over there. But what we can say, along the tray side wall we may get some sort of thicker conditions. So I will read out the things. That is plies run straight across the bead to bead, that is this one. Then we have a very flexible side walls as I told you over here, that is a stiff trade but it gives the stable footprint. Then we have a consist of carcass ply formed by textile arcs. So this carcass plies are running from bead to the other. Then we have each ply at an angle of 90 degree, that is perfectly right angle. Then at the top of a tire we have a crown, that is the trade pattern, and the trade over here which will be some sort of reinforced metal wire which will provide us the less puncturing of a vehicle. Then the ground ply is laid on top of other overlap at an angle, determine the type of tire. So this is the basic condition. I think you may have understood the three types of tire conditions, that is are three types of what we can say the tire plies, or we call it as a carcass conditions. So bias, cross plies, or radial type, or belted bias. These are the three conditions. Please remember all of you. Now, since this radial plies are used number of times, so what are the basic advantages? Obviously, the disadvantages of earlier cases will be overcome over here. So we have side walls can be bent, absorbing capacity increases, lower resistance, that is rolling resistance and hysteresis loss as compared to the bias type, and longer tread life since we have a crown under the tread pattern. Then we have braking efficiency in wet conditions roads. Then we have better steering characteristics. While taking turn, it has less tendency to distort and large resistance to puncture, as I said in earlier slide itself, impacts the tread area. So these are the basic important advantages related to the radial lines. Now, when you observe the condition for a bias type, may be a radial type, or sorry, belted bias or only bias type. So, what exactly is the contact point? When you observe contact of a bias type with the road surface, there may be some sort of angle made with the contact. So, what will happen due to this? There will be max wear and tear at these conditions. But if you compare it with the radial tire, we have perfect physical contact. Though the air pressure within the tire changes, there will be change or lifting of the tread pattern as well. But in this case, if we have a change in air pressure or what we can say load of a vehicle, but the physical contact with the tread pattern will not change. So this is the basic advantage of a radial type. Now you can observe some sort of non-directional tires or some special tires we can say, and based on that what type of tread patterns we are getting. So uniform grooves we may have sometimes, or sometimes non-directional views grooves we may get it. So uniform grooves can turn in any direction, but whenever you use specific pattern for a directional turn, we have to arrange that tire in that position itself. So grooves are in only one direction. So that means it cannot be reversely attached to the vehicle wheel. So this is non-directional or directional type of a condition for a tire. Then we have cross section of a tubeless tire. Compared to our regular conventional tires, it was having a tube. The only change over here is, now I will show you, that is this wall, which will be provided with the vehicle alloy wheel itself instead of providing with the tire. And in between we'll have a lining, inner liner we can say, which will retain the air inside the, or pressurized air within the tire. So this is the condition or comparison between the usual tube tire and tubeless tire. Now everyone knows what are the basic advantages of tube and tubeless tire. No need to go in detail. Just I will read out it. That is less unsprung weight, better cooling we get it, lesser rolling resistance, comfortable rides we have, slower leakage of air. This is the most advantage of a tubeless tire, which everyone most probably uses it and is familiar with. Then we have a simpler assembly, improved safety. Now representation of a tire is very much important thing, how the tire is represented. So most probably or usually we have some sort of information provided on the side walls of a tire. Now what exactly is this? If it's visible over here, it's well and good. If not, I will show you another slide for this. So some sort of information you can this written over there. So what exactly it indicates? So first letter indicates the passenger tire, P. We have different alphabets for that, that we will check it again. And beyond that we have got some sort of information which is nothing but the section width. Please remember all of you what information is provided on a tire. Then sectional width we have for a tire in millimeters. Then we have aspect ratio or a percentage of a section width. It's a ratio we will call it. Then type of ply ratings, most probably is the radial construction. Then we have 14, that is nothing but the wheelbase, that is the rim diameter. Then we have load carrying capacity index, maybe 90 to 85 somewhat based on the type of load carrying capacity. Then we have speed rating, yes, which will indicate 180 kilometer per hour condition for this tire. So for different tires we'll have different ratings. And last one is nothing but whether it will be suitable for tar roads, maybe mud roads or snow roads, it will again change. So these are the basic important things which are to be understood from the type of information which is provided. I will, instead of based on this, I will show you again second slide. See, I think these parameters. So P20575 R1485H, where P indicates the passenger car, 205 section width. Then we have aspect ratio, radial type of condition, that is radial ply, the rim diameter. Then we have load index and the speed limit. So this is related to the notations for a wheel. Then what I was talking about, the symbols will be used for different speed ratings. I'm trying to complete this wheel topic within one lecture. That's why I may seem that somewhat speedy, but I have to complete it. So different ratings are provided over here. Then we have speed either in kilometer per hour or meter per hour based on this. Then we have load carrying capacity based on the load index. If someone on some tire 71 load index is mentioned, that means its kilogram capacity is 345, and likewise tire capacity will change based on this load rating. Then coming towards the trade pattern, different trade patterns. So snow tires have different type of trades over there. Nowadays, trade patterns are varying, which will provide us the lesser friction with better gripping. This is the basic challenge for tire manufacturers. So these are all type of trade patterns, that is for summer conditions, for all weather conditions, or wet weather, or all terrain or mud type of conditions. No need to go in details. Then if you go on with different problems of tires, we have feathering, cupping, and one edge. Feathering we may call it due to the improper alignment. Cupping we may say due to improper balancing or steering. And the last one, that is one edge, we may say it due to, that is one edge in the sense the wearing of one edge is taking place, that is due to worning out of side edge, that is due to the improper alignment of camber angle. We'll discuss all this caster camber angle in detail when we'll come across our steering mechanisms and steering topic. So hope that you understood the basic parameters at least of tires and its materials and this. So based on the irregularities which are created, that is toe in toe out parameters, these are the mechanical irregularities. Then based on caster camber angles, we have excessive wear either from inside or outside. If you have observed, I don't know, for a new tire we have got some sort of extra trade pattern inside the tires. You can observe this, which is most probably used for measuring or indicating the wear of a tire. Either we may go for coin method also, or some measuring devices as well, but no doubt this represents whenever the trade pattern wear a lot to this much height is wear, so that is the indication that you should change the tire, or it may provide hazards to us. So these are the basic tire. Now what exactly is filled inside the tire? You may have air pressure or nitrogen, so there are some sort of advantages related to nitrogen tires. That is, since it's an inert gas, it provides most probably cooling in summer type of conditions, and almost the air pressure does not changes when you filled out nitrogen inside it. And again, few advantages are there. Then we have special type of tires, we may be used for different conditions. I think almost we are completed. No need to go in detail with this topics again. So these are the basic representations: R14, R16, R17, R18, based on the inner dimension of this. So R, most probably you use or change the tire, so tire manufacturer or retailer provide us what type of tire you require. So based on that you provide the rating, whether you require R15, R14. So usually cars have R14, 15 patterns. So if sports cars are there, somewhat SUVs are there, they required R17, 16 as well. So these are the basic parameters, and this was all about your tire and its disc.